The worn wooden floorboards of my small Rosewood Heights apartment creaked a familiar tune under my bare feet as I paced, the glow of my laptop screen casting long, dancing shadows across the wall. My name is Charlotte Evans, but everyone calls me Charlie. At 22 years old, I was on the cusp of graduating college, a milestone I had always envisioned celebrating with my best friend Sarah. But that vision had shattered, replaced by a bitter, acrid taste in my mouth. Sarah and I had been inseparable since kindergarten. We'd navigated awkward middle school dances, survived high school heartbreaks, and even chosen the same university. Our bond felt unbreakable, forged in shared secrets and endless laughter. She was the sister I never had, the person I called before I even thought to call my own parents. Or so I thought. The first crack in our foundation appeared 6 months ago, when Sarah started dating him. I won't use his name because honestly, he's not worth the breath. Let's just say his reputation preceded him, and not in a good way. He had a history of exploiting vulnerable young women, a pattern that was tragically public knowledge if you just bothered to look. My stomach churned every time I saw them together, every time she dismissed my quiet warnings. "Sarah," I remembered saying one afternoon, my voice soft but laced with concern, "are you really sure about this? He has a past that worries me." She just shrugged, a defensive flicker in her eyes. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Charlie. You don't know him like I do." That was the beginning of the tension. I tried to be supportive, to mind my own business as much as a true friend could when watching someone they loved walk into an obvious trap. My therapist, Dr. Albright, had been a godsend during this period. "Charlotte," she'd often said, her voice calm and reassuring during our weekly sessions, "she's probably going through something deeply personal. Something that would explain her difficult choices. Try to be mindful of that. Give her space, but don't abandon her." So I tried. I kept my opinions to myself, offered a listening ear whenever Sarah seemed troubled, and pretended that everything was fine when she'd cancel plans at the last minute because he needed her. I held on to the fragments of our friendship, hoping that one day, she'd see the truth and come back to the person I knew. I truly believed we had an understanding, that even if we disagreed, our core friendship was solid. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday late, and I was scrolling through an online forum I frequented for study tips. Sarah had recently mentioned a particular subcommunity she found helpful for emotional support, one I'd never bothered to look at. Carelessly, she'd mentioned her username in passing weeks ago, a quirky inside joke that I'd tucked away in the back of my mind. Normally, I would never, ever violate a loved one's privacy. That's just not who I am. But a nagging curiosity, fueled by the persistent, pungent tension in our relationship, gnawed at me. My finger hovered over the search bar. I told myself it was just to see what kind of advice she was getting, maybe understand her better. I typed in her username. What I found was a betrayal so profound, it stole the air from my lungs. Post after post, thread after thread, filled with my name. My life. But twisted, distorted, stripped of context and nuance. She wasn't just talking about me. She was omitting key information, painting me as the controlling, jealous, unsupportive friend. She was actively seeking sympathy from strangers, crafting a narrative where I was the villain, the one holding her back, the one who didn't understand her new life. My hands trembled as I scrolled, each word a fresh stab to my chest. "My best friend thinks she knows what's best for me." One post read, "She keeps judging my life choices and it's making me reconsider our friendship. How do I gently let her go?" Another, even more recent, stated, "I'm so tired of her negativity. I'm graduating soon and I just want to move on with positive people. I'm making plans to end our friendship after May 18th. May 18th. That date hit me like a physical blow. Graduation was in 2 weeks. May 18th was the day after our commencement ceremony. She had a plan. A cold, calculated plan to discard me, while simultaneously texting me sweet messages, asking if I missed her, suggesting we needed to hang out, even confirming our plans to watch movies tonight. "Hey Charlie. Miss you. Are we still on for tonight? My place 7? A text from her popped up on my phone, mocking the screen where her deceitful posts still burned. The hypocrisy was sickening. My mind reeled. All this time, I had been trying to hold on to the fragments of a dying friendship, clinging to the hope that the Sarah I knew was still in there somewhere, just lost. I had believed her choices were a sign of deep personal struggle, something to be navigated with patience and understanding. But these posts, these were not the words of a struggling friend. These were the machinations of someone who actively sought to demonize me, to justify her own cruel intentions. I saved the screenshots, a digital archive of her perfidy. The receipts, as some online would call them. They were undeniable proof. The pain was immense, but beneath it, something else began to stir. A cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't just a friend going through something. This was deliberate. This was a lie. The movie night. Tonight. How was I supposed to sit across from her, pretending everything was fine, knowing she was plotting my emotional exile? The thought was unbearable. But then a thought sparked, an idea forming in the crucible of my pain. If she was acting, I could act too. If she had a plan, then so could I. I canceled our movie night. "Hey Sarah," I typed, my fingers steady despite the turmoil inside. "So sorry. I completely forgot I have an early meeting for my thesis project tomorrow. Can we reschedule for next week?" I didn't wait for her reply, just tossed my phone onto my bed. I knew she'd agree, probably with a relieved sigh, thinking she had more time to weave her web. The next few days were a blur of internal debate and quiet observation. I watched Sarah in our shared classes, saw her laughing with other friends, acting perfectly normal. It was a masterclass in deception, and it only hardened my resolve. I couldn't just let this go. Not after a decade of loyalty, of unwavering support. This wasn't just about her gossip. It was about the fundamental disrespect, the casual cruelty of someone I had poured my heart into. This wasn't just about my hurt. It was about the integrity of our shared past and the future I deserved. I realized then that this couldn't be some petty argument, a tearful confrontation where she could twist my words. This needed to be more. It needed to be a statement. Not just about her betrayal, but about my refusal to be a victim, to be cast aside without dignity. It needed to be about reclaiming my narrative, about showing myself, and anyone else who might be watching, that my self-worth was not up for negotiation. The initial shock gave way to a focused determination. My therapist's words echoed in my mind again, but with a new meaning. "What boundaries do you need to set, Charlotte, to protect your peace?" My peace, I realized, lay not in salvaging a toxic friendship, but in ending it on my terms, with my head held high. I began to research, not just about friendship breakups, but about leverage, about public perception, about the subtle art of ensuring that when the truth came out, it wouldn't just be my truth, but a truth that resonated. I pulled out a fresh notebook, one I had bought for post-graduation plans, and began to jot down ideas. The words May 18th were circled at the top of the first page. Graduation was in 2 weeks, and I truly didn't have time to get emotional about this. Come May 18th, my plan would be in full motion. This wasn't just revenge. It was a carefully orchestrated reclamation of my self-respect. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that it would change everything, not just for Sarah, but for me. The screen glowed, illuminating my face with a sickly blue light. My fingers, surprisingly steady, scrolled through the screenshots, each one a betrayal, a chipped piece of the decade-long mosaic of our friendship. The Reddit posts, the omitted truths, the manufactured victimhood. It was all here. My so-called best friend, Sarah, believed she was talking into a void, sharing her twisted narrative with anonymous strangers. She didn't know I was one of them, only with a front-row seat to her private performance. A wave of something colder than anger washed over me. It was a surgical precision of hurt, a deep cut that didn't bleed outwardly but pulsed within. My therapist's words echoed in my mind. She's probably going through something deeply personal. I had tried so hard to cling to that, to believe there was an underlying pain driving her hurtful choices, especially since she started dating Mark. Mark, the predator who had cast a long, ugly shadow over her, and consequently, our friendship. My attempts to offer a lifeline had been met with a wall of defensiveness. Then this, a secret, public dismantling of me. Tonight, we had plans. Movie night, she'd chirped earlier, as if nothing was amiss, as if she hadn't spent weeks tearing me down online. My jaw tightened. "I'm going to let her know I know," I whispered to the empty room, the words tasting like metal. But not like this. Not with an emotional outburst. This needed to be a precise strike, a dismantling of her carefully constructed facade. I spent the next few hours methodically organizing the screenshots, annotating them with dates and specific omissions. I found the posts where she described our arguments, portraying me as judgmental and controlling for merely expressing concern about Mark's history. She'd painted herself as a tragic figure, trapped between a loyal friend and a passionate new love, never once mentioning the very real warnings I'd given her, the credible stories I'd heard about Mark's past predatory behaviors from people in our shared college network. She twisted my concern into malice, my attempt to protect her into an attack. The doorbell chimed, pulling me from my grim preparations. I took a deep breath, smoothing down my shirt. "Game face, Charlie," I murmured, forcing a neutral expression onto my features. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my truth, about drawing a line in the sand, not just for myself, but perhaps in some small way, for anyone else who might fall prey to Mark's charm or Sarah's manipulation. I opened the door. Sarah stood there, a wide, almost too bright smile on her face, clutching a bag of popcorn. "Hey, Charlie. Missed you. Ready for a movie night?" she asked, her voice light and innocent. It was an uncanny performance, a complete disconnect from the vitriol I'd read just moments ago. "Hey, Sarah," I replied, stepping aside to let her in. My voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. "Yeah, I'm ready. Pick a spot on the couch." We settled in, the hum of the television a low drone. We talked about classes, about graduation plans, about the anxiety of the impending real world. It was all so normal, so terribly fake. Every time she laughed, every time she made eye contact, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. How could someone embody such duplicity? How could I have been so blind, so desperate to salvage a friendship that was clearly rotten at its core? As the movie played, a mindless romantic comedy, I felt her gaze on me a few times. I wondered if she was subtly assessing me, wondering if her online poison had seeped into my demeanor. I remained composed, nodding at appropriate moments, offering a quiet laugh here and there. But inside, my mind was racing, formulating the exact sequence of events for May 18th. Tonight was just the preamble. Tonight was about confirming her duplicity one last time. "This is nice, Charlie," she said during a lull, leaning her head back against the cushion. "We don't do this enough lately." A bitterness rose in my throat, but I swallowed it. "No, we don't," I agreed, my tone carefully neutral. "Things have been tense, I guess." She sighed dramatically. "Yeah, I know. It's just a lot going on with Mark and everything." She paused, then added, "You know I value our friendship, right? More than anything." My eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of something in her gaze. Defensiveness? Guilt? Or perhaps just practiced sincerity. "I used to think so, Sarah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't elaborate, letting the words hang in the air, a silent accusation. She shifted uncomfortably, and the movie resumed its silly plot. The tension was palpable, a phantom presence in the room. When the movie ended, Sarah began gathering her things, talking about needing to get home. This was my moment to gauge, to confirm. "Sarah," I began, my voice clear and firm. She paused, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Before you go, there's something I need to ask you about." Her smile faltered. "Oh? What is it?" Her eyes darted away, Attell. "It's about the conversations you've been having," I said, watching her face carefully. "The ones on Reddit." Her breath hitched. The color drained from her face, leaving her pale and stark. "Reddit? What are you talking about, Charlie?" she stammered, attempting a scoff, but her voice cracked. "Don't play dumb, Sarah," I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. "I know your username. I've seen your posts. All of them. The ones where you talk about me. The ones where you omit key information. The ones where you strategize about ending our friendship while simultaneously telling me you miss me and want to hang out." Her jaw worked, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning panic. That's not fair, Charlie. You shouldn't be snooping." Snooping, I retorted, a sharp edge entering my tone. When you're actively constructing a false narrative about me and planning to discard a decade-long friendship behind my back. What would you call that, Sarah? Friendship? Loyalty? She looked like a cornered animal, her usual bravado dissolving. I was just venting. You don't understand what I'm going through. Oh, I understand plenty, I countered, standing up. I understand that you used my genuine concern for you, my legitimate warnings about Mark, as fodder for your online pity party. I understand that you spun my attempts to protect you into a tale of my controlling nature. You called me toxic, manipulative, and jealous, all while pretending to be my friend in person. Her face flushed crimson. That's not true. I didn't. I have the receipts, Sarah, I interrupted, my voice unwavering. Every single post. Every deletion you made after strangers called you out. It's all saved. Your plan to end our friendship on May 18th, right after graduation. It's all there. The revelation of my knowledge about May 18th hit her harder than anything else. Her shoulders slumped. The pretense completely evaporated. The mask had finally fallen. Why, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Why would you do this? Why would I do what, Sarah? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping me. Why would I defend myself against your betrayal? Why would I choose to stand up for my own dignity instead of letting you quietly dispose of me like a worn-out shoe? I didn't know how to tell you, she mumbled, looking at the floor. Things just got complicated. With Mark. Complicated. I echoed, my voice rising slightly. Sarah, you've chosen a path that requires you to lie, manipulate, and destroy friendships to justify your choices. You've allowed Mark to isolate you, and then you've turned on the people who actually cared enough to speak the truth to you. And now you're trying to portray me as the villain to absolve yourself of any responsibility. She recoiled as if struck. The mention of Mark and her mirroring his tactics clearly hit a nerve. Her tears streamed silently, but I felt no pity. This wasn't sorrow. It was self-preservation. So what now? She asked, her voice raspy. Now, I said, taking a step back, creating a physical distance between us. Now, I understand. I understand that the friendship I valued so deeply ceased to exist long ago, eroded by your choices and your deceptions. And I understand that I deserve better. I paused, letting my gaze sweep over her, a decade of shared memories flashing through my mind, now tainted. As for May 18th, you don't need to end our friendship. I'm doing it for you. Officially. Right now. You're not going to discard me. I'm walking away with my head held high. She didn't respond, merely stared at me, her face blotchy and red. Her eyes were still wide, not with anger, but with a strange, blank emptiness. And Sarah, I continued, my voice firm, those receipts? They're not just for my peace of mind. They're my proof. My insurance. If you ever try to twist this narrative again, if you try to spread lies about me, if you try to portray yourself as an innocent victim, I will use them. I will share them. Not out of malice, but out of truth. Because I won't let you redefine my reality or my character. She flinched at the implied threat, a flicker of fear in her eyes. I hope someday, I said, my voice softening just a fraction, you find your way out of this pattern. I truly do. Because the Sarah I knew, the one I called my best friend, wouldn't have done any of this. But that Sarah is gone. And I'm not going to mourn a ghost. I gestured towards the door. I think it's time for you to go. She nodded slowly, still speechless. She picked up her backpack, adjusted it, and without another word, turned and walked out of my apartment, leaving behind only the faint scent of her perfume and the echoing silence of a friendship irrevocably shattered. The moment the door clicked shut, the carefully constructed composure I'd maintained crumbled. I sank onto the couch, not in tears, but in a profound exhaustion. It was over. The charade was done. The confrontation had happened, raw and painful, but necessary. My May 18th plan, originally conceived as a public revelation, had morphed into a private, powerful declaration of independence. But the emptiness in the room was not just from Sarah's departure. It was from the loss of a future I had always envisioned with her. The betrayal was deeper than just online gossip. It was a betrayal of trust, of shared history, and of my genuine concern for her well-being in the face of a dangerous relationship. My thoughts drifted to Mark, the architect of so much of this toxicity. Sarah was clearly ensnared, and my confronting her hadn't just exposed her, it had, in some way, exposed the insidious influence of her choices. Over the next few days, the silence from Sarah was absolute. No texts, no calls, no desperate apologies. It was a confirmation of everything I had learned. She was only sorry she'd been caught. A few mutual friends reached out, asking vaguely if everything was okay between us. I offered polite, non-committal answers, unwilling to air Sarah's dirty laundry unless absolutely necessary. My focus shifted entirely to my own future, to graduation, and to processing the profound shift in my understanding of trust and boundaries. On May 18th, graduation day dawned bright and clear. As I sat in my cap and gown, the weight of the past few weeks felt lighter. Sarah was there, somewhere in the sea of graduating students, but our paths didn't cross. There was no grand public spectacle, no dramatic expose. The true revenge was the internal peace I felt, the liberation from a toxic connection. As I walked across the stage, my diploma clutched in my hand, I felt a surge of empowerment. This wasn't just about cutting ties, it was about defining my own worth. I realized that my original concern for Sarah, for her choice to be with Mark, had been genuine. Her reaction had been a symptom of a larger problem, a pattern of manipulation and self-deception that Mark had likely amplified. This experience, though painful, had opened my eyes. It taught me the importance of holding people accountable, even those you love. It taught me the power of my own voice and the necessity of protecting my peace. My journey of personal growth wasn't just about moving on. It was about speaking up. In the weeks and months that followed, I chose to channel my pain into purpose. I started volunteering for a local organization that provided support and resources for young women navigating unhealthy relationships. I shared parts of my story anonymously at first, in support groups, emphasizing the subtle signs of manipulation and the importance of trusting your gut, even when it means confronting uncomfortable truths about those you care about. I learned that my experience with Sarah and Mark was not unique, and that by sharing my truth, I could help others recognize similar patterns before they became deeply entangled. I focused on building new, authentic connections, valuing honesty and mutual respect above all else. My career path, initially uncertain, became clearer. I wanted to work in advocacy, to help create spaces where people felt safe to voice their concerns and seek help without fear of judgment or betrayal. The resolution wasn't about Sarah's downfall. It was about my rise. It was about transforming a personal wound into a catalyst for positive change, not just for myself, but potentially for a broader community. The echo of Sarah's betrayal still lingered sometimes, but it was no longer a haunting melody. It was a silent lesson, a reminder of the strength I found in standing for my truth, and the profound freedom that comes from choosing dignity over denial. My story wasn't one of bitter revenge, but of quiet revolution. A personal revolution that aimed to ripple outwards, one honest conversation, one shared truth at a time.